Hey guys, what's up? I know it's been 3 weeks since I recorded again, and to be honest, I was going to be filming more this week. I thought I would have, as everyone know, and a lot of you have been sending me questions and commenting on the Kagero Legend deck that was released this last week, if my dates are correct in my head. And everyone's obviously, since everyone who knows me knows that's my favorite clan, has been asking me what I think about it and all this and that. I was going to do, before you guys keep asking me questions about that, you can continue to ask those, and I've made kind of a mental list of all the questions that you guys have been asking. I should have had them last week, but thanks to a shipping error by our locals distributor, I will not have them until this weekend. So I will be doing an updated on that once I get them. But it's going to depend on just how many different versions of the Legend build you're going to want to see. Because to be real honest, there's like 6 or 7 different ideas I've come up with, mixing it with so many different things that I'm not necessarily sure what you guys want to see me mix it with, because I don't want to just bore you guys to death with 8 to 9 deck profiles of Kagero if that's not what you want. So if you'll let me know what specific builds you want to see, I can do that. I'm gonna post maybe 2 or 3, and then any more that you guys want to see after that, if it is requested, I will do it. But I don't want to continue posting them if you have no interest in seeing them. But for this build specifically, this is another deck that I've been messing around with. It's Sanctuary Blaster, obviously, as you can tell from the video you clicked on. This build obviously was it was going to make an impact here in the States, because in Japan, with the release of set 6 and the few cards that made this deck just absolutely insane, it was going to be an unpopular pick, and I decided to slap my build of it together. I'm not saying it's completely different from all the other builds that are out there, because there's 2 different variants of this deck that I've been seeing. It's just Sanctuary Blaster, and then you have Sanctuary Thing Blaster. But to be real honest, I like Thing Saver, as he's called here in the States, which I absolutely hate. I like the Sing Saver builds that people are posting, but if you're going to play one of those competitively, I don't like the Sing Saver variant, because it is so counterblast and cost heavy that half the cards, in my opinion, you end up just not getting. You just don't get to use them because you run out of counterblast, and I just don't like that. So Sanctuary Blaster to me gives you a lot more freedom, because you have more counterblast to pay for costs and continue your combos. Now, if you like the Thing Blaster, Sing Saver variants, then that's great. Continue playing them. If enough people want to see my version of it, I have a version of it that I play tested with for a little bit and tried to just do hand analysis and see how the deck flowed, and I don't know. It just didn't feel right. But if you want to see my version of it, I'll be happy to post it for you guys, so just let me know. But anyway, let's get straight into this one. This is Sanctuary Blaster. So, for the starting Vanguard, we are obviously running Shining Knight Milius. This is your best option to use, so there's no other option that you should be using. In a deck that revolves heavily around grade 2s and superior calling them, obviously you're going to be using a starter that allows you to do that. It's basic skill of GB1, so obviously you have to have strode at least once. Counterblast 1, place him in your soul, search your deck for any grade 2 unit, and call it to a rearguard circle. So, just you're usually going to fetch one of your combo pieces, whether you haven't drawn it yet, or you're going to sometimes fetch another attacker. So he's just overall good. But keep in mind, he's not like a necessary thing in order for this deck to work. One thing I do also like about using this specifically is if you play against any control deck Kagero, Narukami, Nubatama, anything that can wipe rear guards off, they are going to more times than not go after this because it's one less resource that you have, and that's fine because they have to use a resource to kill it. And you have so many outlets and resources in this deck to where you can still search out what you need. So if your opponent wants to kill this, don't hang your head. Don't let it ruin your game plan because it's not needed for this deck to be successful. So you could say he's here just as a good weapon to have, but it's not. If your opponent somehow kills him off, just shrug it off, and it's not that big a deal. For triggers, we are playing 4 Future Knight Lu. You don't need to worry about his skill. You technically don't need to play this one specifically. I just do. Then we play 4 copies of Bringer of Dreams Balonius. I think that's how that's pronounced. If you have an Ultima Vanguard, when your Vanguard swings, you may place him in your soul. Your Vanguard gains plus 5k, and you get to draw another card. So, gets you another card in your hand, powers up your Vanguard. You know, just an overall good card to have. So, now the trigger that makes this deck really kick is our 4 copies of Floral Paladin Flogel. This card is absolutely insane. It is pretty stupid, especially in this variant. Flogel, who we haven't seen since the original Barkle Soul Saver decks that were played like back during the Stone Age of Vanguard days. I'm talking about the days the game started here in the States. But they reprinted Flogel and gave her this busted ability. Basically, at the end of a battle that your Blaster Blade attacked your opponent's Vanguard, you can counterblast one and restand your Blaster Blade and send your Flogel back to your deck, which is recycling critical triggers, and that's absolutely insane, especially in a deck that does nothing but create high power and attacks. So you very well might end up drive checking this, and it might be the reason you win the game. And then we're playing our 4 copies of Yggdrasil Maiden Lane. You can, on these first 2 critical triggers here, like Future Knight Lu, and I told you I played him just because I like him, you technically can play any other 8 crits that you want. The only one that is essential to the deck is Flogel. So if you want, you can play 2 of one art, 2 of one, 2 of another, 1 of one. It really doesn't matter. I play them 1 because they're shiny. I like shiny cards. And I play as many of the classic Royal Paladin triggers as I can, just because classic Royal Paladin just is something I've always liked. So that's just me. But you're free to pretty much stylize the triggers to your liking, so go crazy. Okay, for grade 1s, this is where it's going to get a little stapley because there's really not a whole lot of different ways that you can run this, but obviously you're going to play your 4 copies of Holy Knight Guardian. This is your Royal Paladin G Guardian, which essentially this deck, obviously, if you've researched it or heard about it in any way, it counterblasts a lot. And what this does is it lets us unflip damage so we can reuse it. So, you know, no-brainer. We play 4 copies of Laurel Knight Sisylas. This is just simply our Royal Paladin Stride Enabler. It lets us discard it from the hand, and it treats itself as a grade 3, so it saves us from having to discard multiple cards in order to have access to our G-Zone. So I think this is a max out in this deck, essentially, since I only play 5 grade 3s in this variant. So for the next grade 1, as I play 3 copies of Blaster Friend Barkle. So glad that they brought Barkle back. Barkle is one of my top 10 favorite cards in the game, just because it was one of the very first cards I played, so it's just the nostalgia factor for me. So whenever Blaster Blade is called in front of him, you get to countercharge 1, so you can unflip more damage to have access to more skills. So this is basically Dorant for Blaster Blade, like Dorant is for Blaster Dark. So you don't necessarily need 3 of him, But I like 3 of him. This is just my preference. And then for the last grade 1, we play 3 copies of Hidden Sage Miron. I think that's how you say that. Hidden Sage Miron, when this unit is superior called from the deck, you can Soul Blast 1 and draw 1 free card. Now, the variant that most people are playing is they're maxing out on this card, or they're playing the other card that's called Sword of Hope Richard, which does the exact same thing. I don't see the point in maxing out. 3's enough, because at the most, I've only ever kicked her skill off twice in one game, so I just don't see the point of playing 4. I just don't. 6k rear guards just don't give you that good of a boost, so that's why instead of playing for her, I play an extra Barkle. That's my preference. Grade 2s. This is where grade 2s in this deck is where most of your combo plays happen. So this is, for this deck, arguably the most important part of the deck. So first we are playing 4 copies of Blaster Blade. This is... him and Dragonic Overlord are like Pikachu for Vanguard, or Agumon. I mean, Pikachu for Pokemon, or Agumon for Digimon, or Yugi for Yu-Gi-Oh! I mean, this is the mascot of Vanguard. So, I mean, it's... I don't need to sit here and, you know, talk to you about this card. If you have played Vanguard for a while, I guarantee you have at least seen or heard about this card. But just for, I guess, the lulz, whenever you ride him, you get to counterblast 2 and destroy anything on your opponent's field. But if you call him to a rear guard, however, you can still pay the same cost and kill a grade 2 or higher. So it gives you that little field control presence, even though you're not going to use it all the time. You might use it once or twice, but it's not going to be used a lot. Unfortunately for me, is I've been trying to hunt down a 4th special rare version of him, and I only have 3. But you can essentially play any kind of Blaster Blade in here as long as it's Blaster Blade. You can play the trial deck version, the triple rare version from set 1. There's also a promo version. You mainly just need 4 copies of Blaster Blade, so don't get caught up on rarity. I know some people do, but if the card's the card, it really doesn't matter what rarity it is. It does the exact same thing. Next for next grade 2, and probably the most broken one in the deck, is Favored Pupil of Light and Dark Lou. So Lou came back to us in the form of a grade 2 whose ability is absolutely stupid. This card alone is what makes this deck work. It's just absolutely crucial, and it can get you 2 extra attacks per turn. It's insane, especially when you combo it with Regali. So his abilities are, when he's on the rear guard and he's boosted by this guy, Blaster Friend Barkle, or your trusty little pink dog Flogel, he gets plus 3,000 power and a skill. That skill is at the end of the battle that he attacked a Vanguard. You may counterblast 1. If you do, place this card into your soul and search your deck for a grade 2 with Blaster in its card name. Call it to the rear guard, shuffle your deck, and the unit called with this skill gains plus 3,000 power until the end of turn. So, you're going to attack with Lou. As long as he's boosted by one of the correct 2 cards. Make sure you keep that in mind, because that was something that I messed up on a couple of times in playtesting, I know. He has to be boosted by either Barkle or Flogel. It has to be one of those 2 cards, which actually is kind of cool if you think about it, if you remember the old Barkle, Lou, Flogel, Soul Saver combo. So, points to Bushiroad for keeping with the nostalgia factor there. So you're going to use him and search out your Blaster Blade, call it to the rear guard, and then where where'd he go? If Blaster Friend Barkle was the one that boosted him, when you call Blaster Blade in front of him, you're going to basically you're going to countercharge or unflip the card that you just flipped to call Blaster Blade. So basically, you get the skill for free, which is nice. Everyone likes calling units for free. And the fact that Blaster Blade also gains 3,000 power when called from the deck is really good. Now, there is another variant of this that you can run with Majesty Lord Blaster. It's not as effective because Lou can call any grade 2 Blaster unit. So he can call Blaster Dark, but I don't... Unless you're centering the deck around Majesty, you're not going to... There's no point in playing Blaster Dark, even if you were using it as a backup. I just don't see it as a consistent threat, because one thing I always preach to you guys, you know, and I'm pretty sure some of you get sick of hearing it, is consistency. And even though, you know, some of you might get sick of it, it's what leads you to winning more games than anything else, is you have to build your deck to be a consistent threat. You don't want to... It's okay to have a couple tech cards, but if you just need to create one solid game plan and stick to it. I just don't... I wish the Majesty engine would work a lot more consistently, but it just doesn't. And the grade 2 lineup, especially when you're playing a Sanctuary deck, because trust me, I tried Sanctuary Majesty. You just have way too many cooks in the kitchen, if you see what I'm saying. There's just no way it can work. And be consistent. Keep in mind, I'm not saying it can't work. I'm not saying that some games that it will not click for you, but it's not consistent. And that's just something that I just don't like taking a risk on. That's just me. But next for grade 2s, we're playing 4 copies of Sage of Salvation Benon. Some of you are asking me where this card comes from, because when he very first came out, you only saw him in Alfred variants, and now Sanctuary players are basically scouring the globe, and all of a sudden this guy is just absolutely hard to find. But anyway, first off, his ability is when he's placed on the rear guard, you can counterblast 1, search your deck for a grade 1 Royal Paladin with 6,000 power exactly, and call it right behind him. So what you're going to do is you're going to pay his skill and search out for your Sage Miron, Soul Blast 1, and draw a free card. But in the in the action, you also are gaining an entire column for pretty much nothing. Since you're drawing 1 card, you pretty much aren't even paying a cost. This guy, all he does in the deck is he replaces Sword Me. And if you're one of those Sanctuary players that are still complaining that Jewel Knight Sword Me can no longer be played in this deck, please stop. Because I'm sick of hearing about it, and I'm sick of listening to people whine about it, because the reason Sword Me got hit from this deck, guys, it was absolutely boring when you would check tournament entry deck profiles and everybody and their aunt was running the Sword Me Sanctuary deck, because it was just... It got eat-ratted for the right reason, because it gets boring if you go to a tournament and everybody's playing it. And I give kudos to Bushiroad for doing that. Jewel Knight Sword Me was originally created to increase Jewel Knight's playability. And players out there, and I'm not saying I'm not guilty of it either, because even I abused Sword Me in decks that weren't Jewel Knight. Abused the card the way that Bushiroad did not like, so they put a hit on it. It was going to happen eventually, guys. So try and be realistic. The only reason Sword Me was in the deck was to call grade 1s, because we know how stupid this deck gets when we have a bunch of grade 1s on the field because of Regali. So Sage Miron, Sword Me. Yes, there's a difference of power by 1,000 points, but they're doing the same thing for you, and you're drawing a card off of it. So there's really no loss here. So people who are, you know, still complaining about it, please just stop. And if you think the deck just crumbles because you can't play 1 card in it, then, you know, I don't know what to tell you. Best thing I can tell you to do is try something new, and if not, might be time to move on to another deck. But I mean, it's not it's not as essential as people thought it was. I'm sorry. For the final grade 2 is you're just gonna. I played 2 copies of Knight of Twin Swords. Knight of Twin Swords just gets you more superior calls. Essentially, what you're gonna do, you're gonna attack, call Lu, use Lu's skill, call Blaster Blade. Blaster Blade will get 2 attacks. So it just gets you. You get 3 attacks normally a turn, so it's going to get you 1, 2, possible 3 extra attacks if you have Flogel on the field. So it's just going to increase the number of attacks that you throw at your opponent. And when it's a turn when you've strode Regalia, it makes it even worse. So for the final 5 cards of the deck, it's our grade 3s. This is not really hard to figure out. We obviously play our 4 copies of our main man, Sanctuary Guard Dragon. So, I know I'm probably going to catch a little bit of flack for it, and that's fine. Because I've done plenty of videos where I've talked about I do not agree with people over abusing this card. I've had Sanctuary Guard Dragon forever, since he originally came out. And I've just never used him. Even when the original Sanctuary decks that I talked about with Sword Me running around was extremely popular, I chose not to play it because I didn't want to be a follower. Now, there's nothing wrong with playing the deck because it wins you games, but I'm sorry, there were just other decks that I had more fun playing, and I built decks that I knew destroyed Sanctuary Guard Dragon because I knew everyone was playing it. Because I just don't see the fun in going to major events and basically playing mirror matches all day. I just don't. And when you do go to tournaments and you're playing against this deck, and all of a sudden you flip over a Kagero deck, they're like, oh crap, my rear guards, because this deck cannot function without a field. But I decided finally to show you my variant of it. I'm not saying this is my favorite deck. I'm not saying I'll ever take this to a major event. It's just, it's my build of it, and I enjoy playing it and all that, but I enjoy it mainly for the nostalgia factor. That's the reason I play it. But so, Sanctuary Guard Dragon, for the record, I do not agree with how much hype this card has right now, especially with the price that people demand for him. To me, he's not the reason this deck's good. The only reason people play this card is because of his name. That's it. He could be the ugliest dragon you can possibly imagine, and people would still play him. The only reason this card is played is for the name. That is it. The picture, the effects, they mean nothing. You know, I mean, essentially his second ability, when he's rode as the Vanguard, discarding 1 card from your hand, superior calling 1 grade 1, that's good, because it gets you a free call, and you can set up your board a little bit more, but it is not necessarily essential for the combos that this deck pushes out. And I'll show you my favorite way to do the combo after I'm done with the deck profile, but it's, you know, he's here because of this guy. Let's just be real. For the last grade 3s, I play 1 copy of Blue Sky Knight Altmile. A lot of people, they play Sanctuary Guard Guarantee. I do not like that card because grade 3s with 10,000 power, in my opinion, are a security hazard to your damage zone, because you will take a crap ton of damage, and I just don't want to take that risk. And if I have to ride Altmile, it's not exactly that, you know, what I want to do, but Altmile is at least a decent backup. He can still increase the power of the monsters on your field, and he just is a good solid 11k body, so at least you're not having to worry about dropping, you're only dropping 5 to 10 for every attack, as opposed to 10 to 15, so that just makes more valid sense, at least to me. So, but there are also some people who just say to hell with any other grade 3 in this deck, and they just play their 4 copies of Sanctuary Guard Dragon, and that's fine too. I just like this variant a little bit better. I like having 1 backup. It's just my preference. Like I've always told you guys, you're more than welcome to try out any deck I show you guys for yourself. I do not consider it plagiarism if you try one of my decks. This is a game, treat it as such, but I don't like only playing 4 grade 3s. That is just not a good percentage for me. I just don't like that. So if 4 grade 3s work out for you, then continue doing it. But if I would strongly recommend, if you're having trouble finding him, to play this, especially now since the G Guardians for the Generation Zone plus the increase of the Generation Zone is going to go to 16. I think it's the second weekend in May, if I'm remembering correctly. You can go to the Cardfight Wikia channel and search that out for yourself. I believe it's the second weekend in May, but you can find that out, for sure. So, just, like I've always told you guys, the 2 main things that I would always take into account when you're building a deck is consistency and playing a deck that makes you feel happy to play. Don't play a card because I tell you to, or some Joe Blow somewhere else tells you to play it. Take suggestions from people, certainly. That, like I've preached a million times, that's the reason that YouTube exists, so we can share ideas. So just remember to always stay true to your own playstyle. Don't change for anybody, as cheesy as that sounds. Now, for the last 8 cards, our G-Zone. I'm also going to go ahead and tell you what other changes I'll make to this once the 16-card G-Zone becomes a thing. So, first, we're playing 3 copies of Holy Dragon Sanctuary Guard Regali, or BFD, as I call him, because he makes BFN numbers. Do I really need to go over this card? I'm sure everyone has seen it, but pretty much when you stride into him, if you have a Sanctuary Heart, which is usually going to be the case, every unit in your front row gains plus 3,000 power for each grade 1 or less on your field. So your front row is basically going to gain 9k. What's absolutely insane is that is a continuous effect. So any unit that is called into battle in the battle phase gains that 9k power. So with Lu's going to gain it, and then the Blaster Blade he calls out is going to gain it, and any card called out by Knight of Twin Sword is going to gain it. It's just absolutely bonkers. So I only play 3 in here right now, and that's all because I only have 3. And honestly, when I built this deck, I was planning that they were not going to increase the Generation Zone to 16. I thought, honestly, it would go to 12. I will probably pick up a 4th if I can find it, but you don't need 4, guys. It's very rare your opponent survives 1, if 2 of these. So having 3 is fine. If you have a 4th, play 4 for the lulz, I guess, but you don't need it. One card that will be going to 4 in the G-Zone is definitely Aerial Divine Knight Ultimile. Now, I am not a big fan, I will go ahead and say, of the Ultimile Brave decks. I don't like the Brave mechanic. I don't like leaving myself with that many few cards, and yes, I know there's the grade 1 that lets you bind cards out of your hand for the turn, so you can have access to the Brave skill, and then you get all the cards back, but I'm still just not a big fan of it. But if you're playing any Royal Paladin variant, I don't care if it's Sanctuary, I don't care if it's Blaster, I don't care if it's Seekers, I almost said Liberators, that's Gold Paladin, or even Jewel Knights, play for Ultimile. This card is a must in any Royal Paladin deck. Just because if you do not go into Regali or in any other Royal Paladin deck, your go-to first stride, he is definitely the solid backup for every option that you have. and you can go into him first, which makes him even better. So when this unit is placed on Vanguard, you may flip a copy of Altamile in your G-Zone face up. If you do, until the end of the turn, all units in your front row gain plus 3,000 power. Then if the number of cards in your G-Zone is 2 or more, search your deck for a grade 2 card, call it to rear guard, and that unit gains plus 5,000 power. So typically, if my opponent survives Regali, and like they barely hung on, I'll go into Altamile to finish the game, because Altamile is going to give the entire front row plus 8. Plus 3, and then the unit called out gets plus 5. So essentially, you're still going to be getting the same numbers you would get from Regali, and your opponent is going to have a depleted hand for that turn, even if they stride, because Regali will pretty much almost obliterate your opponent's hand. Unless they're playing something like Oracle Think Tank that basically just their main objective is to draw a crap ton. But anything other than that, you're going to find their hand goes from 10 cards to really fast, because they're dealing with multiple attacks that are forcing them to drop 10 to 15 to 20 guard a time. And if they perfect guard during that turn too, it's going to deplete their hand even more. So next, we're playing 2 copies of Holy Dragon Saint Blow Dragon. Saint Blow is still he's no longer a 4-of in any Royal Paladin deck, and even in the 16-card G-Zone, I would only still play 2. I only play him as a 2-of because if you find your opponent with a small hand and you know for a fact they don't hold, they're not holding a perfect guard, or they don't have a sentinel in their hand, it can push for such ridiculous numbers, especially if you have a full field, because he's going to be 26, he's going to gain 15, which 26, 15, that's 36, 41, and then he's going to have some kind of a boost behind him, so he's going to then be swinging somewhere in the neighborhood of 45 plus, and he's going to have a crit on top of him for that as well. And if your opponent doesn't hold up, if they're not holding a perfect guard or a quintet wall, which I don't know why people would be playing quintet walls in this format, but when G Guardians are a thing, even if they drop a G Guardian, that's only going to give them that only pushes them, if they're playing an 11k Vanguard, to 31, and that's still almost 20k guard shy. So I would still play 2 Saint Blow in your Royal Paladin deck. That's just me. And then for the last one is I'm playing 1 copy of Shrouded Divine Knight Galblade. To be honest, in the whole time that I've been messing around with this deck the past couple of weeks, I've gone into him a grand total of 0 times, because you always go into Regali first, and then if your opponent is still barely hanging on, you always go into Altamile next. To be real honest, you have absolutely no use for this card, really, because you superior call out of the deck so much, he's not really needed anymore, but he is still a cool card to have. And a nice card to go into if your opponent is playing some sort of stall deck and you need something to just continue to push them farther and farther off the cliff, as it were. So he's okay. I don't know if he'll still be in here once the 16-card G-Zone takes effect, but we will see. Like I said, 4 copies of Altamile, definitely. I'll probably put in a 4th Regali just for the hell of it. As for the new Sanctuary Stride, I know a lot of you are going to be asking, well, Drayden, are you going to put the new Sanctuary Stride in here? Maybe. I don't know. The new Sanctuary Stride is... I don't know. I'm going to have to play test it. Is he better than Regali? Hell no. No. But I will tell you, Sanctuary Arc, the new grade 3 for Sanctuary, will probably replace Altamile. But, you know, that is just speculation at this point. I'm going to have to play test. So, anyway, guys, that is essentially it. Let me show you... I told you I would show you my favorite combo to do with this deck. because it's absolutely bonkers. Where did that card go? There it is. Okay. Typically, I like my field to look like this before I go into Regali. So, wait a minute. Yes. Have any grade 2 right here. It doesn't matter. We'll just put him here for example's sake, I guess, if that's even a word. Okay. Typically what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Milius' skill. It's going to kick. You're going to call out a Knight of Twin Sword. Obviously, we strode into Regali. If you have a Flogel in your hand, this is when you want it. So call Flogel, put it right behind Regali, just like that. Now with this field right here, your entire front row is going to gain 9k because we have 3 grade 1 or less on the field. So Knight of Twin Swords is 18 by himself, Regali is 35k by himself, and this Sage here is at 17k by himself. So what I like to do is this right here. Attack with just the Sage, unboosted for 17. Even against an 11k Vanguard, it's still a 10k drop. Attack with Twin Swords. You're going to pay a cost of 1. Call out Lu. And then your opponent's either going to take this attack or block it. Then you're going to attack with Lu, which he's going to gain the 9k power since you have 3 grade 1s on the field. So 9 and 9 is 18. Plus, since he's being boosted by Barkle, he gains an additional 3k bonus, which puts him at 21. And then he's being boosted by a 7k, so 21 and 7 is 28. So now you're attacking your opponent for 28. They're either going to guard or take that. Keep in mind, if they've guarded every attack at this point, their hand is probably gone. Then you're going to crack off Lu's skill. He's going to run away to the soul. You're going to call out Blaster Blade. You're going to unflip 1 damage because you now called Blaster Blade in front of his good friend Barkle. Then you're going to attack with Regali. Regali is going to be 26 plus 9. That's 35 plus a 4k boost. That makes 39. If your opponent has not... If they have guarded every attack up to this point, their Vanguard is sitting at 11 still, more than likely. 39 to 11. So that means that is a 30k drop for 1 to pass. 35k for 2 pass, 40k for 3 to pass, 45k for no pass. It is very unlikely that your opponent is going to have access to that much shield. Now, of course, G Guardians are going to change a little bit how we guard, because we're going to have a card that basically says ditch this and you get a 20k shield out of nowhere, but just still go with the same thought process because it means pretty much the same thing. So you're going to attack for 39. You're going to get 3 drive checks. And then keep in mind this Blaster Blade here, he was called out through Lu's effect, so he's sitting at 12. He gets an additional 9k power because there's 3 grade 1s on the field, so he's sitting at 21k by himself. You're going to attack with Regali. If your opponent takes it, great. If they nullify it, fine. Put all your triggers on Blaster Blade here. If your opponent does not guard Regali, obviously you want to put all the crits on Regali, so they'll take all that damage. And then if he's sitting at 21 by himself, and let's say you hit 2 critical, and your opponent was sitting at 2 damage, so that, or even 3 for that matter, and that puts him at 5. So if you hit 2 triggers, crit, and 2 power boosts here, so that means Blaster Blade, who was at 21 when he's called out through Lu's effect, has gained 5k twice, so he's gained 10, so that puts him at 31. Blaster Blade will attack your opponent for 31,000. If they still haven't hit any triggers, they have rotten luck, and they are now facing a 25k drop to protect themselves. Whether it hits or not, you're then going to crack off Flogel's skill for a counterblast of 1. Flogel's going to run back to the deck where she belongs, and Blaster Blade will stand back up for 1 more attack. That is my favorite combo to do with the deck because it pushes the most numbers, it pushes very high damage. And if you can hit a couple of critical triggers to help you out, it's just absolutely insane for your opponent to have to deal with that much power and damage. So that's just my favorite way of doing it. Always remember that when you're using Lu's skill, he needs to be boosted by one of the correct units. So, anyway, guys, that is my Sanctuary Blaster deck. This is a very fun deck to play because if your opponent takes a lot of damage early game, it's very rare they're going to survive their first encounter with Regali when you spring it on him, because they're not going to have the resources to block it. So I really enjoy playing this deck. It's extremely popular. So feel free to try it out. You know, if you have the necessary cards to build it. It's not the best deck ever or anything like that, but it is pretty good at what it does, and that's pushing huge numbers. So anyway, guys, I'm sorry again for being gone for 3 weeks, but you know how it is. But anyway, if you have any questions, leave it in the comment section below. For those of you who are wanting to still see the Kagero deck profiles, do not worry, they are coming. And not to be too direct, I am working on a couple more side projects for you guys, for other card deck profiles for you guys to see, and other things like that, so you can just kind of sit and wonder what I got planning. I promise you will enjoy it. So thank you very much, guys, for all your support. If you still want to ask questions about the Kagero Legend deck, you can continue to email them to the team email website, which is on the home page, or you can always just leave them in the comment section, and I will answer them when I get time. So anyway, guys, thank you very much for watching. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, thumbs up this video for me, and I will see you next time.